where do we begin? I've been looking so forward to this show because I've done it again. I have done it again. I understand that there are people that make it a goal of theirs and consider it an accomplishment to trend on Twitter. Is this the case? Have I been under a misapprehension here?
I think to some people and to some businesses, that is a sign of success. You know, you hear on wrestling, and we are trending #1 in the world right now. It's never been proven that it actually correlates to any rise in business or anything, but it shows that people are talking about you.
But it's a thing that people aspire to.
I guess so, I would assume.
It's some people. And I just do it and sometimes don't even know it, as we've mentioned in the past, until I've already done it and it's over with. Remember the time I trended on Twitter for calling somebody Butterface? I didn't even know about that one, I don't think, till it was over with. But it was Saturday evening. You called me on the bat phone, and I was about to go outside because the Monroe brothers were here at the castle, Alf and Ralph, and they've been digging me a trench for a new French drain, and they've been cleaning all the leaves and the clog out of my little creek back there. And the bat phone rang, and I answered it. It was you. You said, "You're trending on Twitter." And I said, well, what'd I do? And you said, "Nothing unusual." And I said, well, I'm fixing to put my mud boots on and go back here to supervise the Monroe brothers digging this trench. Do you think it'll last till in the morning? Because then I've got to have dinner after that, and I'm probably not going to get to Twitter till in the morning. And you told me briefly what it was about. And I said, well, this will wait till in the morning because it's only, the cosplayers. That was about the conversation, I think, right at that point, right?
Well, there was the line, "All right, well, I got to get back to this trench."
Yeah.
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
An important trench to supervise. So anyway, the next morning I get up, and my routine. We've talked about it here on the program. I get up early in the morning, and I look at the news, see what's going on, if everybody's still breathing. And look at my bank account is another thing I look at. And then email, even though I can't possibly try to read or answer most of it. I see if I've gotten an email from anybody I know, right? And I start and then I go to Twitter and I scroll through, and I like to either retweet things that are interesting or funny or historic or whatever I get a kick out of, and occasionally comment on something. And I'm a big fan of blocking people because, whether you're Republicans or fans of the cosplay wrestlers, or you just got a smart attitude on Twitter and you say something I don't like, then I block you, because I aspire to the record for having more people blocked I don't do any kind of, I don't know if you can even do that mass blocking. I do it individually. But I want to have the record for having blocked more people than anybody else on Twitter, because it's fun. Because if you got something smart to say to me, and then people will say, well, he blocked me on Twitter after I made a smart-ass comment about him. He's a coward. No, you're just a smart-ass, and boom, and I block you, and then you don't exist. But anyway, it screwed up my morning is what it did, Brian, because there were so many tweets and so many retweets, so many comments, and people were up in arms at each other, not only at me, but each other, because the ones that were normal and used proper English and, have some logical sense to them were on my side, and the fucking goofs weren't. And so they're fighting with each other. And I'm trying to go through all this, and anytime I want to retweet something, or anytime I want to fire back at the guy we're going to talk about here in a minute, and I do that, there's so many tweets coming in, it goes back to the start. And then I'm trying to scroll down to see what I missed, but then it clogs up, and it says, oops, try again later, because it was all jammed up. So I didn't see a lot of that stuff, and I missed a chance to block a lot of people. And also, I didn't have time to read all that shit anyway. But so it kind of, it ruined my morning routine there. And then I had to go on about, because Sunday was the big open up of Cornette's Collectibles. More on that later. But anyway, apparently, we've buried the lead here, because apparently the headline is that an AEW superstar has threatened me with either physical or sexual assault. The way it was worded, we're not actually sure. And it is all over my critique of their crummy amateurish outlaw wrestling. And they did this out in public, if you will. And of course, we're talking about the Bulgarian Bluto himself, Miro. Oh, and some people were sending the Popeye memes with Popeye eating spinach with one hand while fucking fending Bluto off with his feet, and Bluto's swinging and missing and everything. It looks a lot like him. But anyway, we did one of our normal critiques of one of their attempts at a wrestling show, and I don't even know. It's been in the last week or two. I'm not sure exactly which show this was we were talking about. But he took exception, and so did his little friend Pip and their sidekick, Penelope Pitstop. And apparently they didn't get wacky races in Bulgaria, first of all, because Miro thought, and actually some other of these clueless twits also thought that Penelope Pitstop, instead of being a beloved Hanna-Barbera cartoon figure, was indeed some kind of slang for a fucking cum dumpster or something. I don't know, because my head is not in the gutter, in the sewer like these people. But so he didn't get the wacky races bit. But anyway, I was going to ask you to play the tape, but then I found the transcript on one of the many, many wrestling sites that are covering this. And thank you all very much for the publicity. So I'll just say it in my own voice, because this is apparently, it's the transcript, because I remember saying this. And we were talking about Miro, right? He's being allowed to be himself, and he's obviously a complete fucking goof, Cornette said about Miro. He has no idea how to get over, no idea what got him over for a little while before in the other company. He does this stupid shit and obviously is enjoying himself doing it. He was paired with a kid that looks like he's in middle school and his slutty girlfriend. To have a feud with a guy that sticks his hands in his pockets and another guy that looks like he cuts his hair with a pencil sharpener. Job guy. Underneath talent all the way, and he has embraced this. That's what I said about Miro and his little group. Well, apparently, Miro got on Twitter, and this is apparently what started this whole cavalcade. And by the way, also, I found it ironic. Isn't it ironic? Miro's the one that tweeted this. This is, nobody gives a shit about these people. Miro's the one that's threatening me, but I'm the one that starts trending. Did you notice that?
Well, he did trend first, and then everything shifted to you.
Well, of course. Well, there you go. That's a safe bet every time. Anyway, Miro got on his tweeter machine and said, Jim Cornette, if you call Penelope slut again, I'll come. And also, it sounds like her proper Christian name is Penelope Slut, and I've been calling her on the phone.
Well, that was one of the issues with the tweets. Miro needs to put down the video games and open a book. He has horrible grammar.
Horrible grammar. I know English is his second language.
But learn how to use a comma and an apostrophe.
Yes, and an A. See, if you call Penelope a slut again, see, that would have been more proper. But if you call Penelope slut again, like I've been blowing her phone up, I'm dialing Penelope slut. Anyway, he said, Jim Cornette, if you call Penelope slut again, I'll come like God's wrath on you. He will cut. That sounds vaguely sexual. Has he been making some of them Lars Sullivan videos? What is his goddamn...
Come on.
Anyway, he wants to come like God's wrath on me. He said, you understand, I'll personally drive to your basement. Is he saying he's homeless, and if I will give him a room in my basement, he will come here at his own expense? No, of course not. He's threatening me with violence or sexual assault, depending on what coming like God's wrath means. And they're awful sensitive over there at the all-inclusive AEW compound about everybody feeling good and having a nice environment, and this guy wants to come all over me like God's wrath. But then Pip chimed in. Pip chimed in on Twitter. I got it. Oh, no, this was not on Twitter. Actually, I think he said something on Twitter, but nobody understood it, and it made no point. But he got on Twitch, and we don't have to worry about it. He, talking about me, is definitely going to die at some point soon. Then we can all dance. We can have a celebration. That'll probably be one of the first times on the internet that I'll post something like a celebratory post, and I mean that. I'm not even joking. I'm deadly serious. I cannot wait for that man to die. Boy, little Pip has an anger issue, doesn't he? I haven't experienced and enjoyed legitimate venom like that since the 80s. That's fucking kind of giving me fucking goosebumps.
He did have one tweet that I saw where he said he would ride shotgun with Miro to your basement.
Yes, he would ride shotgun, because I don't think he's got a driver's license. He's not old enough yet. But he would ride shotgun to the basement. And, hey, Pip, for one thing, you're talking to a guy that used to save his death threats for fucking souvenirs. But also, I enjoyed that as a longtime heel. But again, wow, do you think maybe Tony Khan should invest in a counselor to come and talk to his locker room? Because it sounds like they've got a lot of unresolved anger issue. Everybody gets on me for, he wishes death on people. Every time that I say, I think that guy ought to be boiled in oil and have his fat sold for soap, then I follow it up with, I'm serious. I really mean that. I would. I'll fill the water up in the cauldron. I want him to die. I'm going to try to boil him. So I think maybe, for heaven's sake, Tony, you've got a medical staff there. Get a counselor for the anger issues and the unresolved pent-up frustrations that these people have. And then Penelope Pitstop. Why, she got on Twitter, and she's got a smart little mouth on her, that little chickadee does. And said rude and vulgar things about me and Stacy, who is not, by the way, a public figure. And it seemed that a lot of this was because they assumed that I was calling her a slut because that was her gimmick on the television, which apparently means, as Dennis Condrey used to say, I think I struck a nerve there somewhere. But then she responded by bringing horrible slut-shaming verbiage that she's learned from the low-class individuals that she hangs out with and applying it to my wife, who, did I mention, is not a public figure, which, of course, I merely laugh at because, by the way, did I mention, I'm a fucking heel and I haven't heard this much legitimate venom from people in years. However, apparently what they were doing was they were kicking back. Old Miro and Pip and Penelope Pitstop. They were hanging out. They were playing some video games, tipping back some White Claws down there in Pip's mom's basement. And they heard that I had mentioned their names in a review. And naturally, they scrambled to their PlayStations to see what that I had said about them and were upset about this. And I just mentioned what I had said and some things that they said and the threats that they issued. And once again, to come on me with the wrath of God, Miro is threatening someone of a smaller and more elderly nature. Shame upon him. And all of the AEW chuds, the cosplay humanoid underground dwellers, are hopping on me for being sexist by calling old Penelope Pitstop a slut, when in actuality, I just mentioned that it was a little middle school. Wait a minute. Let me get my exact, was it middle school or high school? Let me get my exact verbiage up here. I want to make sure we don't misrepresent anything. A kid that looks like he's in middle school and his slutty girlfriend. So if indeed I'm calling her a slut, and it's to be believed, then is Pip Sabian still in middle school? How many years has he been left back? I thought that was the gimmick that they were going for. I thought that's the look they were looking for. Because if you look up any picture, any publicity picture of Pip and Penelope, you see him there, a diminutive, slappable-faced, high school-looking, uncircumcised prick, and his slutty girlfriend. That's the look. That's the gimmick. Now, if for some reason something in her personal and private life that they know that I don't has suddenly struck a nerve with them that they have just jumped all over this, well, I'm sorry, but I don't have time to keep track of your personal affairs. I know on television, for example, when they had the wedding, she didn't look like Laura Ingalls Wilder on the set of Little House on the Prairie in that wedding dress. And, honestly, if old Penelope was offended by that review, thank goodness. Number one, thank goodness she was never an actual heel in wrestling, because the girls that were heels in wrestling and considered it a good night when they came back without catching spit in the face or some guy taking a swing at them. They were called a lot worse than you've ever heard, darling, from the time they left the fucking locker room by thousands of people at the same time. But if Penelope was offended by that review of her wrestling, then thank goodness, Brian, that I never said any of the things that I could have, because I've never targeted her specifically for a long, drawn-out critique, because she's just parsley on these other two goofs' plate. But I never said the things I could have said, even though she actually had relations with Jelly Nutella. You remember that? So she should have an infectious disease specialist on speed dial. Didn't they do something with that on television? With her and Jelly and Pip, where she and Pip kicked old Jelly in the balls and then made out or fondled or something while Jelly laid there holding his little fucking Winky. Did I dream that in a fucking fever dream, or did they do that?
I don't remember exactly what they did. And again, I kind of feel, it is interesting just how sensitive these low-card people are for a critique of their performances. And you've never had anything complimentary to say about any of them, to be honest. And apparently that means they wait for your death. And just very sensitive here. You're lucky you don't have any emotional issues, or you may not be able to take this sort of attack on you.
That's true. I could be browbeaten into something drastic if I had human emotions.
But I do think it's I don't think you should be calling her slutty or a slut. You can't say because she dated Jelly Nutella she's a slut. You can't say
I didn't say that.
You can't say because she married Pip Sabian she's a slut. Now, if you wanted
I did not say that.
If you wanted to argue that her cheating on Jelly Nutella, there's at least a discussion to have there, but you weren't even doing that. You were throwing it out there, an empty slut. It was an empty slut you threw out there.
Well, I take the empty slut back. I was talking about the picture, the video, the visual that they put with their package, their gimmick put together. But I realize, and what you just said, that still doesn't mean you could call her a slut. That just means that at certain times she may have exhibited slutty behavior. But there's no reason. And that's why I've never said about things like that, because I would never get so personal about a woman that I have never met just because she absolutely sucks at her job. I would never say horrible things like that about someone who had never said a derogatory thing about me. But since those derogatory things have come up, and she's got that smart mouth on Twitter, and she made some very rude remarks, Brian, would you like to know some of the things that I could have said about Penelope Pitstop, but never said, but I could have said?
I don't know if I do. No, I don't know.
Well, I did say one of these things in response to her on Twitter, Only after provoked, I said I have never said, but I've heard it said, that if Penelope Pitstop had as many dicks sticking out of her she's had stuck in her, she'd look like a porcupine. But I never said that. I just heard it said, and then I tweeted it.
Awful. Just awful.
Come dumpster. Come dumpster.
Will you stop it? What?
I never said that Penelope Pitstop has had more dicks in her than a urinal at Madison Square Garden. I never said that. Not once. I never made the comment that if her and Pip Sabian ever had a baby, they would name it Target because everybody's had a shot at it. I have never once made that statement.
Oh, God.
I have never once, Brian, have I ever once asked you the question, Brian, what's the difference between Penelope Pitstop and a rooster?
You haven't.
And I've never given you the answer. A rooster says cock-a-doodle-doo, and Penelope Pitstop says any cock'll-do.
Oh, come on. You can't play your own applause. That's ridiculous.
I have never made the comment. I have never revealed publicly what Penelope Pitstop says after having sex, which is, are you guys all from the same team? I've never said that. I have never related the aftermath of what happened when Penelope Pitstop had sex with a vibrator. She chipped her teeth. I've never said that. If they bleep this on YouTube, everybody, here's the podcast, share the punchline. But also Stephen P. New wants me to remind everyone this is all for entertainment purposes. Parody is the the description. Parody, P-A-R-O-D-Y. Now back to the program.
You know,
go ahead.
I was going to say, though, the funny thing about this is, and I'm going to expose a little bit of our business here. This is all this venom that was shot towards you, based on what they're saying is venom towards Penelope.
That was cummed all over me, like God's wrath.
It's all because of this critique. And of course, you have never been complimentary about any of these three low-card people, really ever. But, you know, the funny thing is, when we complete a show, when we're done recording a show and we're getting everything in post-production ready to go, this is when it's out of your hands. You've moved on to the trench and whatever else is going on at the castle. I send Travis Heckel, our artist, a list. There are two lists, actually. Priorities and others. And the way it works is the priorities list is the topics that I think the listeners want to see on YouTube right away. They don't want to wait. It's timely. They want to hear it. They want to see it. Let's get to these as fast as we can. The others list is we've gone through all of the priorities, and is usually a good deal in order. We've gone through all the priorities, and we still have some time before the next episode, so let's get some more clips up. And with the exception of, I think, Miro's debut, and the critique of Miro's ridiculous outfit, and the wedding, which didn't even get as much interest as we thought it would, they are always at the bottom of the others list. There aren't a lot of people clamoring for critiques of Kip and Penelope and Rusev. Literally no one gives a shit.
No. Miro.
Miro. I forgot his birth name, his Christian name. No one cares. So when I saw this pop up on Twitter, and you forgot my favorite tweet of them all, which was, "Answer me, Mark."
Oh, yeah.
When I saw this pop up on Twitter, I'm like, you know, these are people looking to get some attention right now because they don't get any, because no one gives a shit about any of their programs or anything they're doing. They don't even realize you're not on Twitter all day. You're not just sitting there waiting for the Bulgarian Bluto, as you put it, to send you something.
Well,
Mark?
here's the thing. You give them too much credit. I believe that they thought that I was sitting there on Twitter hiding from them because they had talked to me and I was suitably chastened. I was out looking at an interesting mud trench rather than being bored by listening to Miro. But you're right. Somebody actually sent me a clip of one of the websites when I finally did tweet the next morning, when I always do. Cornette breaks his silence. That's the problem. Yes, they were definitely thinking that I was cowering somehow, but you give them too much credit. They weren't looking for attention. They really lost their shit. They really got mad and said, how dare he say that about us? And of course, Miro tries to take up for Penelope because he's really mad that because the whole thing was about Miro and a side note on Penelope, and that was supposedly what he's mad about. He's pissed off because I'm telling everybody he's a fucking idiot because he demonstrates he's a fucking idiot Wednesday nights on national television. But you talk about the interest, that's the thing. I want to blister this fucking Pip Sabian, but I don't really know how, and it probably wouldn't be funny. Because for any of the jokes to work, you have to know what he looks like or how he wrestles or any fucking thing about him. And this guy blends into the fucking background like a polar bear in a blizzard. So what do I do with this guy? Somebody's convinced him he's a pro wrestler. I got nothing to work with. He's worse than Brandon Cutlet, that bland piece of white meat that sits on a plate. I mean, for Pip, he's got a cute little British accent, right? He could do Disney voiceovers for the Boomerang channel or something. If I was a producer and I was casting a show or a movie and I needed to fill the part of a delinquent in a Dickens-era children's workhouse asking for some more gruel, I would probably hire Pip Sabian. But otherwise, I don't even know what to do with this guy. And if I did great material, nobody'd fucking care. But he and Penelope make a cute couple. If they ever need to cast Mark Miro and Sable as teenagers, if the fucking network does like one of those, the Little Rascals type thing with the guys as kids, maybe there you go. And I'm sure their careers will probably turn out the same way as Miro's and Sable's once she fucking makes a move upwards again. But
this is now the second modern wrestler who called you a mark.
Yeah, well, he proved my point. I said he's a goddamn idiot that doesn't know what business he's in, and he doesn't even know how to use the terminology. He doesn't even know what the words mean. And this is not a second language thing. This is he does not understand. I looked up his background, Brian, because I wanted to know who this fucking guy was. Because like I said, I never even saw Rusev. We weren't watching that shit at that point. You liked Rusev for a while there.
I thought he was pretty good. He was misused. From what I've been told, a part of the reason why he was misused was some of the higher-ups in WWE may have thought he was a fucking idiot.
Well, I was going to bring that up. Go ahead.
But yeah, no, I think he's a guy who has some talent. He has been completely wasted in AEW, so I don't know he's getting older. I don't know if we're ever going to see any of the potential ever actually get reached, but he is a guy who could have at one point been a real player, and instead they treated him like a jerk-off because that's what they eventually thought of him as.
Well, and that's why I wanted to know more about this guy, because he talks like he's such a big star in the wrestling business, and he's a tough guy, and he knows everything, and he's so accomplished. And he feels like he can tell other people how to modify their behavior. So I thought I'd try to see what all his accomplishments were. Of course, we've followed the whole AEW run from the fucking pink Minnie Mouse t-shirt to the unplugged video games to the whole fucking lunacy and the mascot and the cake and everything. He's been a joke. Everybody's laughed. He came to AEW to be his true self, and he's been a fucking preliminary joke. But in the WWE, he got over for a while, as I referred to in that tweet. He got over for a while, or in that statement I made in the review. He just didn't know how that they got him over because they pushed him like a monster. And apparently, as you mentioned, by the time his run was over with, he was getting kicked in the balls. This is a common theme with these people. All modern wrestling these days, like people to get kicked in the balls and their wife go kiss another guy. In this case, his real wife, who I guess is Lana, over there, she used to be Russian. Now she's not, but she's really married to this guy. And she was playing tonsil hockey with Bobby Lashley while he was laying there holding his fucking nuts in the ring in front of thousands of people. So apparently, they thought he was a blithering fucking idiot once they got to know him. And then I looked back further and found out he had been in NXT or Florida, whatever their training program was at that point, for like 3 or 4 years before he got to the main roster, and they couldn't smarten him up to all this time. He's only been in the WWE system They couldn't smarten him up to the business, ended up making a fucking goof out of him. So he goes over here and takes this guy's money and gets to do his own shit where he makes a bigger goof out of himself. So there was failure in the background. But I'm like, where did this guy suddenly come from? This big Bulgarian beast just comes like God's wrath and into the wrestling business and the WWE system. I couldn't find anything about his early years, Brian. I had to go to the dark web where I found his true identity and his true real life background. You know, there's all kinds of things you can find out there on that dark web. If Hotchkiss Featherbottom, he hooked it up for me because the second audio guy on his cable access cooking show, The Velvet Colander, is a big dark web expert. And apparently, you know, he comes from, he's Bulgarian, you know, back in those days in the 80s when he was born, because you said he's older, that was communist area, you know, the Russian bloc and all that place. So it was very secretive. There's a lot of secrecy going on about this guy. But apparently, when Miro was born, his first participation in failure was in conjunction with his father, who failed to pull out of his parking spot in the back seat of a Bulgarian Yugo 9 months before Miro was born. And then when he was born, as a matter of fact, at one of the finest hospitals in Bulgaria, the doctor slapped his mother. But the real secret, ladies and gentlemen, well, no, you remember, Brian, you may be old enough to remember when I was a kid back in the 70s and 80s, I watched the Olympics on television. Because, you know, the United States, especially in 72, there was Chris Taylor and Ken Patera. And, you know, and we were always checking to see if the Olympic athletes for the U.S. were going to win the gold medals and beat Russia and maybe become wrestlers. And the Russian athletes, the weightlifters and the wrestlers, they were fucking freaks. At Vasily Alexiev and Alexander Medved and at Alexander Karelin, they even nicknamed him the Experiment. He was the undefeated amateur wrestler. Vince wanted him at one point bad because he heard the story and the nickname. He loved the idea. But what it was, all the stories came out. The Russians and the communists were doing experiments with their athletes with all kinds of steroids and growth hormones and chemicals, right? And drugs. And they were pumping these athletes. Well, that's the Rocky IV, you know, the fucking Russian, right? If he dies, he dies. That was a whole thing. It was a real deal that was going on. And that's why they started all this major drug testing in Olympics and professional sports. Do you realize that Miro is not indeed Miro's real full name? Miro's real full name, Miro was born Miriam Boringasovich. She was a member of the 2004 Russian women's Olympic weightlifting team, and she actually won the gold medal, but she was disqualified when she took her after-game piss test standing up. And right there, she was banned from Russia and came to the United States to become a wrestler. Now, I'm not saying Miro is transgender. There's been no surgery or transition or anything. Miro, as Miro exists now, is still female. It's just those Bulgarian bat hormones got out of hand.
That's ridiculous.
So, and as evidenced from her AEW run so far, she's learned to sit down when she pisses now, so hopefully she won't have any more of those horrible drug test failures. But anyway.
You know, I'm going to make a comment here, if you don't mind.
Please do.
Like I said before, I don't agree with just throwing the word slut out there, and I think sometimes things like that happen just kind of flippantly. You'll flippantly say something without, like I said before, it's empty. It's not really like an attack on the person, it's more just an attack on the character or the way you perceive the character. And I think most people...
The presentation.
Most people who are logical know that I could say, had no idea who Penelope Ford was up until AEW, and you haven't paid much attention since then.
No. So, that actually would be a mistruth. I've been reminded that she's one of the people that took the dick flip for Dick Boy and used to do the stunt where they take the lollipop out of his crotch and stick it in her mouth, or she sticks it up his ass, or whatever that whole byplay with the lollipop was. She's one of those that used to do that. So I've probably talked about her before when talking about the other,
I don't know,
lower class individuals that did those type of things.
To be honest, they all took the dick flip. They all did the dick spots with that guy. So
yeah, but she was also sticking the lollipop in places on him and things and such.
I don't know.
It went a little
I don't remember her ever coming up, but the point is, you tend to sometimes say something flippantly, and it's kind of an empty comment that you just throw out there because you're using a lot of words.
I'm using a lot of words.
But I actually want to commend Rusev and Kip and Penelope for being willing to stand up openly and publicly for the plight of women today, and to say that terms like slut or slutty shouldn't be used for anybody. I guess the word is just outlawed now.
Yeah, especially when Penelope uses them herself about other people.
I want to commend them. I want to say I hope that this is just the beginning of things, because if they are truly committed to this cause, to fighting for the injustices delivered to women in the wrestling business and women throughout society, I want to stand with them. I've had nothing but beautiful, strong, elegant, intelligent women in my life, and I want to stand with them if this is really their cause, and I want to see where they're going to go from here. Are they going to call out Chris Jericho for donating tens of thousands of dollars to a man who has been credibly accused by a couple of dozen women of everything from molestation to rape? I'd like to see if they do that. I'd like to see. Does Rusev have the balls? Have the steroids and growth hormone destroyed his balls? Or does he have the balls to call out Chris Jericho for supporting Donald Trump, who has, like I said, 24 women out there, credible accusers? What about Don Callis? Don Callis, working with AEW, working with the heavyweight champion of AEW. Are they going to say anything about Don Callis? About how disgusting it is that Tony Khan would bring this guy into this company that has such a full woman's roster, considering all the problems that they just had in Impact. The sexual harassment problems. Don Callis's scarlet fever. Are they going to stand up and call out Don Callis and Tony Khan for using him? Maybe go even further and call out the Asper family for the bogus independent investigation into Don Callis. Go ahead. I dare you. Perhaps they'll call out the people in that locker room right now, who still talk to Joey Ryan. The people who right now, despite all the accusations, some of them hit very close to home. The people who still talk to Joey Ryan. People who still try to get him back into the wrestling business. Perhaps we're willing to work on a show with him, knowing he was on the show. Are they going to call out all those people? All those Southern California hotshots who still talk to Joey Ryan? I'd like to see them do that. Or maybe some of the people there who have somewhat, I don't know, you could say anything from abhorrent to just ignorant views on the place of women or transgender people in society. Perhaps people who think that women are inferior to men because, what's the saying? Eve was born from Adam's rib, or whatever it is. Perhaps some fundamentalist nutbags like that in that locker room. Perhaps they're from Rancho Cucamonga. Will they call them out? I'll give you another one. Just came to me. Wasn't Kip Sabian's roommate Jimmy Havoc? For those of you who don't remember Jimmy Havoc, this guy, one of the worst wrestlers we've seen in many years, and that's saying something. This is the only guy they've cut. They have a roster that grows by the week. They keep adding people. No one has been let go. People are paid too much. The one guy they let go after he got out of rehab was the guy who was accused of forcing himself on a woman, Jimmy Havoc, the buddy and roommate of Kip Sabian and Penelope. I'd like to hear them publicly say stuff about him instead of going after a very popular wrestling commentator and podcast host. I will go there and I will take Rusev by my left hand and Penelope by my right hand. Kip could be in the back. and I will march in there and we could stand up together for women and women's rights in wrestling. Or perhaps they're just doing this all for attention because they're bored, because they're barely being used and no one gives a shit about them. But if they're committed to women's issues, I would be committed to working with them on that.
I wish I had a recording of the Battle Hymn of the Republic so I could have started playing it behind that statement. And I'd like to go on record here now saying I'd like to thank Miro as well. Because in the Bulgarian Bluto's only known example of good timing, he caused me to Twitter. He caused me to trend on Twitter.
You will Twitter in your basement.
I will Twitter in my basement.
Can you imagine if he got to your basement? If he somehow breached the castle gates, got through the Monroe Brothers trench. Hey, where is he? He's not in the basement. Oh no, this is the crawl space. I'm in the crawl space. Let me out. Hey, please, let me out the crawl space. I drove all the way here. Pip Sabian shotgun.
And I got news for you, Miro. There ain't no door handle on the inside of my crawl space door. But anyway, I would like to thank Miriam Boringasovich, to use her full Christian name. I would like to thank her as well for causing me to trend on Twitter at the exact same time as I reopened my Cornette's collectible store at jimcornette.com for the first time in 2.5 months. Especially because I thought it was going to be flat because the action figures aren't here yet, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But instead, it was one of my more successful opening days because everybody was talking. So thank you, Miro. I made more money that day than you did by just going out and looking at a mud ditch. But we'll close this up, but I just want to explain one thing to Miro and also little smart mouth Penelope and also little Pip. Can I have some more gruel, please, sir?
Consider yourself at home.
Consider yourself part of the family.
Oh, that's the funniest part. Like, Rusev's a big, jacked up guy, on or off the gas. A big guy. Penelope, she's a, I guess, former valet, now just a wrestler. But then his Kip, who's he intimidating?
Right. Well, he's going to ride shotgun. But anyway, I just want to say, just to close this up, a thing that, guys, we can do this every fucking week. You want to fuck with me? We can do this every fucking week. Because here's the thing. I make money doing this, but I don't do this to make money. I do this because I have fun, as I've said many times. Me and a lot of people out there that are listening to me resent the bullshit that you've turned our favorite sport and hobby into. We resent this whole fucking nattering bunch of fucking children in the wrestling business these days and how silly and stupid it is. And we don't like it. And the only way that we get any enjoyment out of it now is by taking the piss out of it, Pip. By fucking with it and making fun of it because it's a joke. You've turned our shit that we liked into a joke, so we're making fun out of you. And I am speaking for all these people that feel the same way I do. And apparently, since there were so many millions and millions more people watching wrestling 20 years ago and 10 and 20 years before the Attitude Era, if you count up all of the regional territories, millions more people than that watching wrestling. And now it's a bunch of fucking jack-offs playing video games and trying to be their own video game character. And the fans you've got are a goddamn bunch of grown adult men, supposedly, that put their favorite picture of their favorite Joshi Japanese princess champion on their Twitter profile. So fuck all of you. I don't care if I didn't make a cent doing this. I would do it because I enjoy it. And like I said, you want to fuck with me? You should have sat down, Miriam. You should have sat down with somebody in that locker room that's known me for a while, and they would have told you, you really shouldn't do that. That's not going to be a good idea, because he don't give a fuck what you say about him, and he will cut you to the bone verbally. You should have used the Sean Waltman rule. And we can stop here because, like Brian had just revealed a little while ago, when we do talk about you fucking putzes on the show, nobody gives a shit. So I got bigger fish to fry, and I can leave you alone. Although I've had so much fun now, I'm not sure I want to. And if anybody's pie hole continues to dribble, I may just make it a goddamn personal fucking mission of mine to make the three of you the biggest laughing stocks in the history of this fucking business until the day that all of us are dead, just for my fucking shits and giggles. So take your tongue lashing and move on, Bluto, because you're playing with the big boys now and you're not equipped. You're not smart enough. I think I could outtalk you in Russian. You're not smart enough. You're not swift enough. And if you want to come to my basement or my penthouse or anywhere in between, see how far you get. People that you know have my phone number. Call me up. I never answer the phone, but if you do leave a voicemail, I will call you back and tell you exactly how to get here. And I'll also give you the fucking address of the goddamn police station and or the hospital that you will be transported to afterwards, just so if the next of kin and or the fucking anybody wants to bail you out or pull the plug on you. So anyway, as Arn Anderson used to say when he had just fucking verbally eviscerated somebody on Crockett's plane, Miro, you're volley.
Maybe he wants to come to your basement because he thinks that's where you keep the video games.
Yeah, well, it actually
Do you have a Donkey
is.
Kong? Do you have a Pac-Man in your basement?
No, I've just had Dennis Coralluzzo's 1978 Kiss Bally pinball machine completely restored, and it's down in the bar. Of course, I wouldn't let him touch it. But anyway,
Look at that shiny ball. How does this work, this amazing pinball?
He wouldn't be able to figure out how it worked because it would be plugged into the wall. He don't know how to work them when they're plugged in. He just stands there like a dipshit and fucking acts like he's playing them so he can get his head run through them.
So what are your ideas to come into AEW? You know, you've been misused in WWE. We think we could do better. I'd like to come in playing video games. And I wear a Mickey Mouse shirt because I love Mickey Mouse.
And he wants to be the best man of a preliminary fucking heels wedding as a way to introduce himself.
Oh, brother.
All right,
someone did ask me the other day. I had a bunch of calls, and they said, what do you think Jim thinks it is? And I said, he probably thinks the same thing I think. It's hysterical, but he's probably a little disappointed. It's one of the low-card people that are fucking trying to get attention.
Yeah, because my fucking store reopening could have been twice as good if it had been somebody people actually give a shit saying those things. But you get what you get. And speaking of which, the store did reopen at JimCornette.com. Cornette's collectibles are on sale now. Boy, howdy, are they. But as we revealed, we had teased it last week on this program, and we revealed on the experience, the boat from China with the action figures is still lost somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle. And we have not been given the all clear from the dock that it has landed in Florida. So the action figures were not on sale and will not be on sale until they have arrived in the continental United States. I'm not going to take people's money without having a product to send them. And actually, thank fucking heavens that the figures weren't on sale, because with what we did, I would already be blown out, capsized, and have to close down again. So anyway, if you ordered Sunday, March 14th and early Monday, March 15th, I hope to get all that stuff out by this weekend. But expect when you order a 7-day turnaround, at least for the next week or so. If things slow down, it'll be better. And if the figures come in, we'll take it from there. But the good news is, if you want something besides an action figure, order it now. Because when the figure orders start coming in, if we do get capsized and have to close down, you won't be able to get anything. So please help me out. If you want anything besides an action figure, get it right now. And did we mention the next round of cameos, Brian?
We did on the experience, but we should definitely do it here.
Well, since the figures are not in, even though I thought I'd have a little bit more free time now than it turns out, I've already advertised, we've already set it up. The next round of cameos will be this coming Sunday, March 21st at noon Eastern time. And we're going to do a limit of 50 again. So please, that you won't blow their site up. They got plenty of server, but there was an issue last time, as we mentioned, because everybody was trying to glom on and order them all at once. The inventory feature blew up. Hotchkiss is going to be manually turning this on and off this time so he can count. So last time we slipped through with 64 of them. We're only going to do 50 this time. Cameo.com, Cameo, cameo.com/Jim Cornette, or just go to cameo.com and type me in. There is a deal that you can click on. It says email me when he's available, but by the time you would get that email, they're going to be gone again. So just Sunday, March 21st, noon Eastern time. Be at the ready, and I'll take it from there now that we know how to do this stuff.
All right.
All righty then. And we're almost at 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. Happy hallelujah. Rainbows, waterfalls, and puppy dogs. How far are we away now? What, 5,000, 4,000?
4,000 and change as of this morning.
Well, hurry up, everybody. I want another cake.
Whoa, come on now.
What do you mean, come on now?
You're going to get a cake every 10 minutes? What do you need another cake for?
No, I got a cake at 100,000, even though you didn't send me the cake. One of the listeners had to send me the cake, but I want another cake for 200,000 now.
So what are we going to do? You get a cake for 200,000, then what's the next tier that you get a cake for? Is it every 100,000? It should be 100,000, then $1 million.
Hold on. No, now, just stop now. For one thing, I'm not going to wait between 100,000 and $1 million to have cake. For the second thing, 100,000 and then 200,000 if I get a cake. You would think 300,000 I get another cake, but 250,000 is $250,000, and that's a round number. So the next cake time should be 250,000, and then I guess 500,000, and then we might have to jump to $1 million. That's still a long time to wait without cake.
Look, if I'm going to indulge you with this crazy idea, I think it should be 100,000. Then 250,000, then 500, then $1 million.
So you're just trying to screw me out of my 200,000 cake.
I guess so. I guess I really am. Not like I was going to buy it for you anyway.
Fucking cake thief.
I didn't steal the cake. I just didn't purchase it.
You, as sure as you have snatched that cake out of my fucking big mouth, as sure as you've reached your hand into my mouth and pulled it out of my throat as I was fixing to swallow it down my neck, you've taken that cake away from me for 200, because that does make sense. 1, 255, and then, so you've taken that cake away from me as sure as if you stole it like a thief in the night.